Hello and welcome to what I'm calling Nerds Talking on the Internet because that was the best name I could come up with. I'm John Kuempel, an engineering team lead at Jing, and I'll be asking the questions. And today, our guest is Ryan Foote, product manager at Jing, and he'll be the one answering the questions. And we are discussing JavaScript today. So, Ryan, I've read JavaScript: The Good Parts, which is a very, very short book. So why are you
It
so
is.
interested in a programming language that's obviously so inferior?
Um, yeah, I mean, good question. I think like a number of programming languages, there's good parts and bad parts. Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of JavaScript and when like the first edition of that book was written, there may not have been a ton of stuff to review. But I mean, I think JavaScript and Python too are both pretty easy to actually get into, like to start programming as like a first language. And especially with JavaScript, you don't necessarily need a whole lot to get up and going. Like if you have a browser and a text editor, then you're pretty good. So, and most people have those already on their computer. So, yeah, it's nice to be able to just like pull up a website or make a quick little web page, and you can actively start interacting with it in JavaScript. So
Right. So you're not just a product manager here. You do a few things. So I mean, why are we talking to a product manager about JavaScript?
yeah, so that's definitely like a recent thing this year, being a product manager. And yeah, I definitely wear a lot of hats at Jing Power Box. Um, so I guess in terms of why we're talking to me about it, I think just because it's something I'm decently able to talk about, and a lot of our tooling actually that I still use every day is written in JavaScript. So it's kind of a easy segue into a conversation.
Speaking of which, you in particular have been working on like with CLI clients, which is not the first thing I think of as an application I would build using JavaScript. So why JavaScript and not like Python?
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, I guess that mainly comes down to just the fact that I'm using what I know. So JavaScript's sort of an easy choice there. And also, um, I didn't create the initial tools that we use day to day. Another one of our engineers did, and he wrote it all in JavaScript. So another easy choice there. Um, yeah, I mean, I am aware that Python can also do, a command line tooling. And I mean, I think they both have some good libraries out there to make it like a lot easier to get up and going. Cut out a lot of boilerplate stuff. You can grab arguments that are passed and do logging and all that really easily with some of the libraries out there. So yeah, really just because it was there, and it's what I know.
All right. So, what libraries are we using in our command line tool to, make it easier to make it a command line tool?
Um, well, some of our a lot of our command line tools are actually kind of older. There's some newer stuff out there, libraries, frameworks that help you with that. I think Google just released one a little bit ago for doing scripting. It's called XS or something like that. But we're using things like Winston for logging. I forget the name of it might be prompt or something like that is the package for actually grabbing arguments and stuff like that. So yeah, it really depends. I think there's a number of different tools. Some of them are handling things differently than others. So it really depends on probably when it was made and who was creating it and what they were playing around with at the time. So it's
Right.
always a good opportunity when you're creating something new to see what else is out there and experiment.
So I guess recently, like, what have you seen that's impressed you with the way people have used JavaScript?
I think some of the cross-platform native app frameworks that are kind of developing are are pretty interesting, and I definitely like to explore those. I think things are a lot better than they were before in terms of like having a native app that's developed in like HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and then being able to run that on Android or iOS. So let's see, Quasar is one, and Ionic is another. They're, I think, fairly well known in that space. Ionic has basically you can use like Angular, Vue, JS, React, all those kind of major front-end JavaScript frameworks, and code up a native app for Android and iOS. So it's pretty cool.
So are there any other frameworks or libraries that you're really excited about?
Yeah, I mean, I guess one I'm interested in is GPT-3. I mean, that's not necessarily JavaScript only, but there are libraries that you can utilize it with. I've seen some interesting little web apps recently that they'll use the GPT-3 framework.
Wait, can you explain what that is?
Oh yeah, sure. So it's like it's for language processing, and I believe it's open source. Microsoft's pretty invested in it, or has invested in it, and they're working on a few things that I just read about, such as like natural language processing for, I think, to help developers with low code kind of situations. So pretty interesting stuff. And yeah, so like some of the little web apps I've seen recently is like creating a cover letter for like applying to a job. You just give it like a couple bits of information about the job you're applying for, and it'll spit out a cover letter, because who likes writing cover letters?
I should use that next time I'm applying for a job.
That's right.
Yeah, in Jing.
Yeah, totally. Another one is Supabase, I believe is what it is. Supabase. So it's actually an open source alternative to Firebase, except that it uses Postgres database instead of the NoSQL one that Firebase uses, which, I don't know. Whenever I'm messing around with database stuff, I feel like having a relational database is always more practical than NoSQL. Obviously, there's uses for NoSQL, but yeah, I don't know. In the small little things I write, it's relations always help. So
yeah, I find that right, like if you really need to do fast querying, for instance, NoSQL usually aren't great for that. They're more like great for, well, I mean, if you're trying to query over a large data set, I should say, trying to get a lot of things back, it's usually not very fast. But if you're trying to get one specific key, it's usually pretty good.
Yeah. I've heard of using like a MongoDB, which is really popular in, like, I think the JavaScript ecosystem. Using that for more of like a queuing system or something like that,
right,
as opposed to like the actual database that powers the whole backend or whatever.
So like what side projects are you kind of tinkering with in your spare time?
I don't know. I get into all kinds of stuff. I definitely have a lot of like half finished apps or whatever sitting around.
Don't we all?
Yeah. I mean, it's I think one of the best ways to learn in terms of, you're exploring either like a concept or a framework. And it's nice to just kind of throw something together to experiment on that idea. And then there's other ones, I just work on something and lose interest. So it kind of goes by the wayside.
So it's like your favorite or most interesting one you've worked on?
Actually, one I still use all the time, it's like, it's kind of falling apart at the seams, is it's actually like essentially a bank scraper. So I'll just it's a web scraper. I think I'm using Puppeteer, which is basically headless Chrome, and it'll log into my bank account, pull the like transactions, any outgoing stuff, and just like whatever the latest deposits and outgoing money are. and then yeah, present that into a little UI for me. I was going to take it further, but then that was where I ran into the well, I definitely need a relational database here for all these ideas that I had for it, and then yeah, haven't gotten back into it very well. But
obviously, you're hosting that online with your hard-coded banking credentials,
that's
right?
right. Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, no, that's all local only. So
All right, that's good.
outside of programming, yeah, I don't know. I definitely into home automation. It's always interesting. 3D printing, and then just various home improvement projects. So doing lots of stuff.
All right. So, like, when you say home automation, like, what exactly do you mean?
Oh, so there's a really great, I guess, framework called Home Assistant, and that's actually Python based. It has a whole bunch of components that you can basically tie into the system. And since I would say like the home automation ecosystem is really kind of new, there's no singular party who kind of has all the components you might need to automate things around your house. Um, Home Assistant's a great way to go because you can basically tie all those things together into an interface and set like or create automations and do all kinds of stuff. So um, a really simple one is like about 45 minutes before the sun goes down, all my lights turn on in like the living areas automatically, so I don't have to mess with that. I'd love to automate the blinds in the house, like opening up in the morning to let light in
Nice.
or things like
Yeah.
that. Obviously, there's like lots to do with cameras now. They have all kinds of cameras you can like doorbells or just mount them around your house and all kinds of stuff. So um, there's some pretty interesting stuff you can do with like image processing and recognizing either people and their faces or even like a car approaching up to your driveway or someone delivering mail. It'll alert you to that kind of stuff. So
All right. Yeah, we have a Nest camera that, you know, goes crazy and makes my dogs bark when someone comes to the door.
oh yeah, yeah, that's great stuff. Yeah, I mean, setting like in AC or heating and all that stuff, it's pretty cool what you can do now, even with just like a Nest thermostat. But then, yeah, adding a Home Assistant on top of it opens the doors to a lot of other stuff along with that. So you don't even have to like if you leave the house for a vacation, you can kind of set your home in vacation mode and you can make it look like somebody's still at home with like the lights activating, but you can like leave the heat down or something like that. So all kinds of fun stuff you can do. It really depends on how far you want to take it, how much you can, I guess, get into the internals of your house and make changes there, which obviously that can be challenging sometimes.
Right. I live in a condo, so there's like so much I am allowed to do.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. So, getting back to the web and kind of where things have evolved with those technologies, kind of where do you see it going over like the next 10 years?
JavaScript.
JavaScript, HTML, CSS, all of that. The web stack, if you will.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, I guess in terms of I don't know the whole web stack. I mean, I think being able to create more and more, I guess, native type apps across all kinds of devices and whatnot, it probably become more and more popular. I think it's I don't know always been the dream of a lot of people to be able to write your application in like once and have it available on all these different platforms. So I think that'll definitely evolve. I don't know about HTML so much. I mean, there's not a ton I think left that you can do there besides adding additional elements. CSS, man, always evolving. I'd love to see like component based media queries rather than just screen size or whatnot. I think there's a lot you can do there. I think there's some movement in that regard as well. So definitely looking forward to that. JavaScript. I mean, I think it's still like one of the top, I guess most popular languages out there. Like I said, especially for beginners. I think that trend will continue. It's nice that there's like a proper committee behind, ECMAScript and all that, which influences the varying JavaScripts out there.
Right.
And I think I'd like to see some of the, I think, issues around like the NPM ecosystem kind of worked out. Like there's security issues that pop up. There's the whole like left pad thing that happened.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, a while ago now. But yeah, I mean, the kind of sheer number of modules out there is kind of overwhelming at times. TypeScript, I think, is pushing JavaScript in some interesting ways. If you prefer a strongly typed language and all the benefits behind that, and I think some of the cool stuff that TypeScript offers, you can incorporate that into JavaScript now in a pretty easy way. So that's something I've started to explore. I'd like to get more into. It makes a lot of sense in a lot of areas and helps either prevent bugs, or when you're debugging, it helps with that a lot as well. So let's see. There's also, it used to be like you'd have to pull in like a lot of packages or libraries to do like async stuff, or I don't know, like a get or whatever. You'd have to pull in a library for that if you're like hitting an endpoint or something like that. A lot of that's starting to be incorporated natively into the language, so you can kind of drop those libraries, which is nice. And I think we're seeing more and more of that over time. So it's like people develop these libraries to solve a problem, and then it catches on, enough people start using it, and then they integrate it natively. So that's always nice, and I'd like to see more of that as well.
So what else would you do if you were on that committee and if you had the ability to influence how the language evolved? What sort of changes do you think you would want to make?
That's a good question. I don't know if I'm advanced enough to sit on a committee like that. I mean, reading the spec I guess even CSS can be a little fun sometimes, reading the spec, but yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure that I would have much to say. I think things are proceeding well in my regards, but from my perspective, I should say. So yeah, I don't know if I would, like I said, have much to say or much influence there.
All right. So if you had to like relive your work life all over again, would you still subject yourself to the web?
You know what? I probably would. I might even go for a CS degree or something. I don't know. I've always enjoyed like the tinkering and exploration that comes with programming. I think building up your knowledge over time, being able to tackle like different, new, bigger problems is always exciting to me. So yeah, I don't know that I would change anything, except for maybe get into it sooner rather than kind of being self-taught and getting in slowly over time.
All right. Now, if JavaScript were a supervillain, who would be its arch nemesis?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, maybe a strongly typed language, except we do have TypeScript. So I don't know. That's a good question. What are your thoughts on that?
Maybe TypeScript is kind of like the anti-JavaScript.
Or it's like the sidekick,
Bizarro
the Robin.
TypeScript.
Yeah, there you go.
TypeScript's like Bizarro JavaScript.
Fair. Yeah.
Will there ever be JavaScript in a spaceship?
Yeah, so I actually looked into this a little bit, and I believe it's already happened. So
No.
Yeah, SpaceX for their Dragon capsule, they were actually running WebKit, I think, a browser for the UI screens. They were using no, I think it was actually Chromium, HTML, JavaScript, and CSS. So there's that. And then very recently, the Mars helicopter was actually running some JavaScript as well, along with a ton of Python. But yeah, I don't know that the helicopter itself was actually running the JavaScript, but GitHub recently, I guess, gave everybody some like little, it's not really awards, but a little notification on their sidebar if they had contributed to certain packages on GitHub that NASA ended up using for the Mars rover and all that. So
Wow.
So yeah, technically JavaScript's been in space.
And maybe that's why those Dragon rockets kept blowing up.
Maybe, yeah. I mean, I suppose if the UI could fail the whole system, that would be bad. But
all right. So who would win in a fight, Douglas Crockford or Tim Berners-Lee?
Another good question. Let's see. I mean, so Crockford invented or created JavaScript, and Berners-Lee did the internet. So I don't know. That's a good question. Might have to go with Tim Berners-Lee on that one, because if the web hadn't been invented, I don't know if JavaScript would have come about.
Yeah, and I'm not sure who's older, and Crockford looks bigger though.
Yeah, he might be. They I think they're both about the same age, and Crockford's at like PayPal or something.
Yeah,
and then
yeah, I think so.
Tim Berners-Lee, I think, teaches like MIT, maybe does some other stuff, but yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Ryan, and good luck with not, having your home get taken over by robots.
Thank you. Yeah, it was great to talk to you.
All right. Thanks a lot.
All right. Bye.